So since we end up playing Icebox quite a bit, courtesy of Valorant matchmaking, I thought that I'd discuss some of the Cypher trips over here because Icebox is a map that usually requires you to have at least one sentinel, given how many different choke points there are for the attackers to come through onto your site. So one thing that I wanted to discuss was flank watch using Cypher trips on attack. And I'm not quite sure if this was while playing with one of you guys or this was with me playing solo, but I saw a Cypher who was trying to put a flank trip on a something like this. Well, you can see it's at head height, so that's not the problem. They can kind of go through it. But the main issue is, well, as I hope you can see, is that people can quite easily just jump through and avoid it completely. So this isn't really a good trip. The unfortunate thing about A site is that you can't really do much of a good flank watch unless you have these two trips. There are different variations for this depending on how you're kind of trying to watch flank. What I mean by this is that someone could still be standing here and be able to shoot your team since the trip is kind of all the way over there. So you might want to mix it up a bit, and I'll explain that in just a bit. Another thing I want to talk about B side was that many people what they do is that they place a trip for flank, something like this. So this is not a good trip because again, as you can see, people can quite easily just jump over it and ignore it completely. So it's not a good trip. There's some people who try and put a trip something like this so that it covers both choke points, one being this one and one being this one. But the problem with this one is that it's actually jumpable. If you stand over here, you can just ignore it. I think you have to crouch jump for it so that your legs don't hit it. So when you jump, you just press crouch and you should be able to jump through it. So it's not exactly the best trip. It is a good trip if you're watching flank for someone pushing like this, but then again, not the best trip. The best trip, in fact, is one that you can bank off of here, I believe. Something like this, yeah. So this trip isn't jumpable from either end, and the good thing about this trip is that it covers both choke points as well. So that's the trip you should be using to watch flank on B, and make sure it's always placed on head height. This is slightly above head height, but it should be fine. When I was and earlier when I was talking about variations of flank watches for A, what I meant was that you don't have to place your trips one on this choke point and one on this one. You could maybe mix it up by placing one trip over here and then one trip over there. So this way you're also kind of watching flank, but the good thing is that you have a lot more space now. So this all of this space is secured by your trips, kind of. But then again, this is a bit risky because the trip over here has to be placed after the round starts, and this trip, I'm not quite sure where the spawn badges are, but I think you'll have to place it after the round starts as well. So if someone's holding from tube, they can probably see it and shoot it down. So yeah, that's all for this video.